Hi guys, I'm Chun-Li, the owner of the Bold platform. The one who created the show that we're watching now is Cooking with an Architect. Welcome to Bold Series 2 of Cooking with an Architect, dubbed the People's Pavilion Edition. Here on this show, we aim to highlight one of the 5 senses in architecture, taste, a sense that can bring people together and unite each other, which is often left out in the design process. However, today on this show, we will explore architecture through food. How may you ask? Our guest will create a dish that will answer this question: what does architecture mean to you? And today's guest architect is Armor, a researcher, architect, and a maker who aims to impact our built environment through positive, sustainable innovation. He's also a design tutor at University of East London and associate of the Sustainability Research Institute at UEL. He's also the co-founder of Atelier La Junta, a workshop that explores architecture, design, and creative fabrication through critical making. Not only do we have a guest architect, but we have invited a guest community personnel that will be part of today's conversation. Tifa, one of the volunteers here at the Community Kitchen, Ida's Community Kitchen, here in Haggerston, Hackney. She supports with the surrounding community, making food for members and provides many with hot meals, putting smiles on people's faces daily. So please help me give them a warm welcome. So hi Armor, thank you for joining us on the show today. And Tifa, I understand that you're making a dish for us today to answer the question, what does architecture mean to you? Could you please explain a little bit more about it?
Of course. Hello everyone. Today we are going to be preparing a paella, or paella as they call it in UK. And it's a dish that to me represents the aspect of collaboration on cooking and of open-ending dishes in cuisine. And that's how I want to relate it to architecture as well, as a process that is open-ended, but is a part of a collaboration in between different players.
Yeah, and even this year as well, for this series, we are collaborating with Beyond the Box, and it's very important for us to look at the essence of co-designing and collaborative making, which I know you've done very often throughout your career, being a tutor, working for Atelier La Junta in Spain. So it'd be great to get your input more about the dish and how this is collaborative making, and how we'll come together with our personnel, Tifa from the Community Kitchen, Ida's Kitchen, and how we can make this. So where do you want us to start? Where do you want us to start with the dish?
Okay, so let's just introduce first all the ingredients that we have and what we are going to be preparing. So we are going to be using this traditional plate, which is called paella. That is a special plate that is prepared to prepare the dish. And we are going to be using onion, garlic, and peppers, which will fry for a bit. And once they are a bit better prepared, we will add chicken. And then once the chicken is ready, we will be adding the rice, water. Everything is going to be boiling for around 40-45 minutes, and then we'll have it ready. And it's a dish that we are preparing it in this way, but there are many different ways of preparing this dish. So if you ask my friends, they will tell you a different way. People from different areas, different regions in Spain, they prepare it in different ways. In London, all the markets and many kitchens prepare it as well. So it's quite difficult to see what is the right way of doing it. And that's something that I really like, because in the same way architecture is very difficult to see what's the right way of doing architecture.
Yeah.
So everybody has taken the base of the dish and modified it slightly. And the outcome is that you can prepare paella in maybe 20 different ways. And I think that that's how architecture should be as well, that there is not only one way, but it can be open to interpretation. And especially within architecture, and the reason why we have you here today as well, Tifa, is to give the voice within the designing of spaces, because very often you can see that community are kind of the afterthought or just the beginning, but not throughout the whole process. So do you want us to start with anything, chopping anything? We're your sous chefs today, so you can let us do. You have such incredible assistants. So we will start by cutting, I think with probably 3 onions would be enough.
Okay.
So we'll just peel them and chop them in small pieces.
Okay. So Armor, in terms of you being the architect and when you're first going to design these spaces, what are the first things that you look for? in terms, like?
I think that the aspect of cooking as a cultural experience and as a experience for people to gather and to share their knowledge around first around the pot, but then around the dish once speech.
Yeah.
I think that relates very closely to architecture, and I think that one of the first things that we as architects should be, and most of us are more and more interested into doing, is understanding very well where we are operating. So understanding very well the community that is going to be involved in the project, the social context, the social fabric, the urban fabric, and how is the design that we are going to be doing, whether it's a building or whether it's a workshop or whether it's an event, is going to have a positive impact for the community and for the actual users. And that's something that we are more and more trying to encourage our students to look at, both at the University of East London and through the workshop of model making in Atelier La Fontana. And I think that all these relationships between ingredients and selection of ingredients and background of where ingredients come from, that is so important in cooking, is as important in architecture as well. So I think that similarity, that analogy is quite clear, because now we are we're using ingredients that we have selected that have been used for preparing this dish for many generations in Spain. And in the same way, when you as an architect start to select your materials and to select how are you going to kind of design your spaces, but also how is it going to feel, how are you going to touch it? It's not taste, that's the only sense that is but all the other ones are included. So in a way, if you are cooking in a building that provides facilities that are designed for that, it is much more engaging as an experience than if you are cooking in a building that is almost like an afterthought. So I think that's why it's very important to understand who are you designing for and how do you want the people to use the building.
And so if I wanted to ask you, if you have ever been in a space where you feel like you haven't really considered the users of those spaces, and how do you think we, architects or designers, can try to bring it to a place where it's more, say, impactful but useful for those who are using those spaces?
Yeah, I think two things I've observed in spaces that are a little bit lacking is, first of all, just the lack of thought about functionality. So the people that are using those spaces are real people who have real things to do. So whether they're using a space for commercial reasons or domestic reasons or, whatever, you sometimes see just the lack of understanding for where things should be placed. Exits that are in spaces that you expect people to occupy a lot, creating just a dynamic that makes that space not one where people want to settle, for instance. And similarly, just spaces that don't really require a lot of bending or maneuvering yourself in certain ways just to be able to use use the space. That's not ideal. And then the second thing that the last one is just where a space is expected to be used for either commercial or, for example, like a community kitchen type of space, and they're not being thought for, aesthetic, and I'm just assuming people's aesthetic about people not, the design being too focused on functionality and not appreciating that people in these, sometimes these, kind of semi-industrial, quite straightforward spaces, they appreciate beauty and they don't want to enjoy occupying anything. So and it's just that getting a balance between those two. I'd like to see.
I'm glad that you said that, because I think I was speaking to someone before and they were talking about even youth community spaces and how they don't actually even consider the use when they're designing it. So say, oh, we designed this place for a basketball court, or it has like rooms that you can do whatever in, but there's no thought of how a young person actually use those spaces as well. Even when you design council estates as well, when you think about those spaces, very often it's designed in a way that is very, say, budgetly made, but there's spaces that kind of cause either young people to dwell, which kind of creates like that kind of more gangs of stuff to hover. But I think, like you were saying, if we asked and actually speak to people what they liked and what they design, like in terms of spaces that they like to dwell in, maybe it'd be a happier space and the spaces would be used more commonly. I don't know if you have a take on that or more.
Yeah, I think that balance that you mentioned between functionality and aesthetics is probably the key to the design exercise. And I think that many times it fails because there is no engagement with the people that are actually going to be inhabiting the space.
Yeah.
And more and more is changing in the profession as kind of, even there are requirements now that you need to have a community group that is involved in the project to get the planning permission.
Oh, okay.
To have more and more an engagement with the people that are going to be at the end utilizing the spaces, and that they will be able to tell you very well, okay, I need a kitchen and I need this space around me and I need the storage to be located there, and I need to be designed in a way that works, that is functional, but also that has good natural lighting and has good natural ventilation, for instance, and I'm able to see a garden from the inside, or I'm able to have a small greenhouse where I can grow some of the plants that we are going to be using for cooking. So we are more and more aiming for this to be an integral part of the design process, and I think that's where education and that's where our students should be leaning towards. And I think that's something that we are doing very well in the University of London, and more the projects that whenever the projects are finished, you can see that they have an impact and they kind of go back to the place where they started. As an example, we were working a few years ago in a venue in Hackney Week, and you actually were involved in that project. And we started working with them, and for almost 4 months we were doing weekly meetings where they were explaining what were the needs of the project. The students were then responding to those needs and presenting the work back to them, and then they were kind of commenting on the work that they were seeing, and then they were feeding back into the student work. And it's a dialogue that happened, that it was in total, I think it was 4 months of almost constant dialogue, and then there were a few months where the design happened alongside on the knowledge that we acquire with the dialogue, and that's where aesthetics and materials and feel came into play. And then after that, we have like few schemes that they selected, and then they use those schemes to the funding. They use those schemes to keep the whole project running, and now they are looking into actually develop one is not one of the schemes, it's more like a combination of few of them into their actual extension of their venue. So I think to me that's a very good example of how something that started very small, it started just as, should we collaborate, should we have students engage with this, and then it led like in a very slow pace in a way compared to how a project develops normally in architecture, but it maintained that beautiful collaboration and conversation between academia, students, real world, and community, that hopefully now it will result into an actual architectural project.
An article that I read came to my mind is about how they said in the UK, this is like one of the countries that has the most oldest architecture, like compared to other countries, because those countries they knock down and they rebuild. So we're quite behind in terms of, I guess you could say, like you were saying, in terms of more modern architecture that fits the kind of the time and the season that we're in. And I think maybe we need more adaptable architecture, spaces that are able to adapt and fit and suit the user well. I don't know if we have any take on that or more in terms of the architecture side.
I think that's the idea of flexibility and being able to transform one space that is a community kitchen into a food bank, if you need it, or into a community center where all the events are happening. I think that's fundamental. And building for that flexibility and for that potential evolution of the space or of needs is something that we should all be thinking about from the architectural perspective, but also clients, developers, and users, and not think like spaces. I think they are not anymore only a kitchen, or they are not anymore only a community center. They need to be able to adapt, to evolve, to have that ability, and sometimes it's through design, sometimes it's through functionality, sometimes it's just through making sure that we understand very well how these events can happen and look forward. And I think that it has some of like two extremes. One is the stream that talks about changing on programs, changing on users from community center to food bank to kitchen to any other use that we might foresee in the future. And then the second one is the one that you mentioned, which is incredible. It's really complex, but at the same time it's quite simple, which is the fact that our buildings were built 50, 60 years ago, and they are not prepared. They were not resilient enough, and they are not prepared for the climatic challenges that we are facing now. And I think that the only reasonable solution to that is to extend money on retrofitting. I think that the housing market in London is extremely complex, but it has this ability of absorb people, and it's based on these beautiful estates like the one where we are at the moment, which are really central. They're very well integrated in the urban fabric. They are like on the steps of other developments that are newly built, but I don't think the dialogue is we need to demolish them and make something new. Is we need to celebrate it, but we need to retrofit into standards that they don't need to spend a large amount of money on heating, on cooling. In the other way, to start thinking about how can we improve that? Can we, at the moment, like all the cladding throughout London and the UK is being replaced because of the terrible tragedy of Grenfell. Now the legislation has changed, and we are replacing cladding, so it's more resistant to fire, basically.
Yeah.
Can there be a law that instead of only reacting to a problem when the problem has already happened, so when the problem of America happened and then we have the law that asks to change everything, can we react to that earlier to avoid the problem in the first place? So can we have a law that says like all the buildings need to have very good thermal insulation, so the heating and the cooling is not directly benefiting the government, obviously, it's benefiting the pocket of people that live in there, but in turn is making the country richer. So I think that idea of how can we make our buildings better is not only about how can we build better buildings, it's how can we maintain and take very good care of the incredible housing stock, especially on council housing and council estates that exist in London at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's slowly being done, but it's more profit driven, so we are retrofitting them just to sell that that's more expensive or to rent them more expensive. Yeah. But it should be the other way around. It's like let's retrofit them so the people that are living now there, they can have better lives.
Yeah.
It's not only about changing the windows or changing the doors. So that's the typical steps that the council normally do. It's about identifying how the facades are made, how can we insulate it better, how can we address acoustic issues, thermal issues, and going back to that initial project that we were discussing before, a retrofit renovation that we proposed for the community center in Harmony.
Oh, yes.
So one of the main agendas that the client wanted, it was like, I really want to have a venue that is really efficient, it's very sustainable, it uses very little electricity, and it allows the users to be healthy, to have a healthy environment. So it's coming from the clients as well. It's not only us that want to impose it, but clients want that to be the new reality. Yeah. So I think that's where we should be fighting. That's the next battle that we fight. Well, do you think that architecture could have reacted to that need during COVID of providing spaces that are outdoors, that allow people to interact, but with like keeping certain distance? I mean, do you think that there was something that could have been better organized?
Yeah, definitely. I think the value of temporary space and temporary structures is probably underappreciated. So I think we saw loads of in the hospitality service, which was really struggling to survive during COVID, we saw loads of a high demand for outdoor space, if you remember.
Oh, wow.
So everybody said to put their little seating outside, all that sort of stuff. Yet the UK is not really the ones climate to support that intendedly. And then they could have done with temporary spaces that allowed, a feel of outdoor, but with some shelter. And the same could be applied in a community space like this. You could have something pop up temporarily, whether it's, I don't know, repurposing some containers and making them not have sides.
Yeah.
And making that the space. But yeah, I remember at that time we were all struggling from action.
Yeah.
And because there's so much isolation and people being holed up indoors, either due to legislation and the rules, or just from fear of contracting an illness. So a space that I felt for outdoor enough and safe. Was also not really expensive. Would have been appreciated.
So would you say that basically this community kitchen became like a cornerstone to the community?
Absolutely.
During like COVID?
It did. I feel like we've had testimonies from people. Of course, everybody responds differently to a space like this. I have somebody who cast a comment of we made Rosemary to show like Greece again. A really long-standing resident of St. Mary's Estate.
Oh, wow.
And it must be that, how London can be a little bit transient, especially central London.
Yeah.
So you don't really get no neighbours, and within 2 years they're remortgaged or moved to somewhere else, or they've had a family and upsizing and they'll be priced out of this area.
Yeah.
So there is that transiency, and she said that having a linchpin kitchen like this, would just allow them to look into a space, basically, but also a project that they could all engage with, even in volunteering or in the service. So just saying hello, you could come in and have a supper seriously for, and that gives us some social interaction, especially if you're a retiree. So I think it has to come in a little bit alone. Cornerstone, for this particular community and some wider places that you're interested as well.
I just wanted to give us a little update so that our viewers exactly what's happening so far with our dish.
Okay, so we have, as you have seen, we have prepared the onions and the red peppers, which have been cooked for 15-20 minutes. We have added garlic as well to it. We are cooking everything with olive oil. And then we have added the chicken, which we are now cooking to more or less until it's half done. And after that, we are going to be adding the rest. So the idea of the paella dish, whether you do it with chicken, you can also do it with seafood, and you can do it with only veggies, is that everything that you cook into it impregnates the taste, and the rice gets the taste of what you are cooking before.
Okay.
So at the end, everything cooks together with the rice. And I think that what we were mentioning before of spaces that can adapt and being able to change of use, I think this dish in a way represents that as well.
Yeah.
Because as we said before, this is something that everybody prepares in a different manner.
Yeah.
And if one day you don't have chicken, but you have beef or you have chorizo or you have seafood, you can always add it.
Okay.
And the paella will be a success. So it's a way, it's a dish that in a way is resilient. It's allowing us to modify it and to kind of improve it or change it or adapt it to what you actually have or what you actually need. And it still works. And it could be, we could have somebody now come in and add something else and the dish will still work. So it's not a dish that needs to follow a very strict recipe. It's a dish that can adapt to what you have.
So it's like...
That's what architecture should do.
Yeah, it should adapt. So it's like the collaborative making of how we all coming together and help like making the dish. Also as well, to our viewers, this recipe will be in the bio. So if you want to cook along with us as well and be part of the story and the essence of what is happening, please do. It will be great. And also leave in the comments as well if like how you find the dish and what do you think about this collaborative making dish. I think very often you forget that like one day we're all going to age.
Yeah.
One day
we're living longer.
And we're living longer now as well. So because we have better healthcare systems, we're eating better now. So I think we kind of forget a whole user, which is the older people, and how can we include them within these spaces as well, so that they are still being able to function and still able to use these spaces, because a lot of older people now live and migrate and live into cities. So can we design spaces that are thinking about them, having shops that are like just walking distance away, not too far away, having everything at the doorstep ready for them to, like, you know, get. But what's your take? Do you think we need to consider now as well the older, let's say people in their winter years? Do you think we need to consider them more within our design as well? Because we have to bear in mind that we're going to live in these spaces as well when we get older as well.
Do you know what? I genuinely feel like, because I'm a mom, so I've got a 2-year-old.
Hello.
And having that, experience of just being a happy-go-lucky in a London dweller, to having to navigate a pram, and or carrying a baby up so many flights of stairs, because places are designed not to not the people who...
Our train station is warm.
Absolutely. So I think it's beyond just the elderly. It's also about people who've got other abilities or, disabilities, or people who just have a different burdens. All of that has to be taken into account. And I just feel, I'm pretty sure that there is legislation that, encourages spaces to be made accessible, but I just don't know how much it has in by way of teeth. And just enhancing that legislative framework and ensuring that we think of all the groups that are typically left behind, being considered, or I don't know if they truly consult them, but at least being considered when spaces are being built or being involved. And in a London, especially, it feels like a young person's playground. But if you just take a moment and walk slowly, you'll notice how many elderly people live in these spaces. And have lived here since they were born, for example. So they're not going anywhere. I'm sure our generation and those behind us are also going to be born here, live here, die here. So yeah, and there are things about how people move, the speed with which they move. How high they can lift a leg. Can they use their legs even? That needs to be taken into account. And I see it less as a problem for new builds, to be honest. I see it as a problem of the existing buildings.
And that's the thing, a lot of
not only existing buildings, but the public realm around it, right? I think that's something that we always challenge our students to do. Yes, for one day, get the baby pram, and just walk around London, because then you won't understand that then every line that you design in the map has consequences for a lot of people that are using the public realm. And I don't think that's something that in architectural education is embedded as much as it should be. Few of our students, every year you get students with different backgrounds, different disabilities, but we have some students that have some severe disabilities. I mean, I think that the designs that they came with, they were much more sensible and sensitive than the designs that other students that perhaps were not even aware that would be an issue. And I think that it's not until you are in that situation and until you are facing the problem that you realize that that small step of 10 centimeters, that it seems nothing when you are walking normally with a baby or on a wheelchair. It is the difference between being able to go and not being able to go. So they are excluding from a lot of the spaces, a big sector of the population. So I think that's something that you remember to me in the project that we were referring to before, and that's something that we try to do more and more. One of the main partners of the project was a wheelchair user. So it was always on the meetings whenever we were discussing the projects and whenever we explained to the students how the briefs need to operate, they knew that one of the users of the scheme and one of the key negotiators that they had to explain the project to was a wheelchair user. So there was much more thought about where the lift is located, how do we negotiate between different steps that naturally will happen because the world is not perfect.
Yeah.
We have topography, we have different levels, we have an underground network that was built by different companies, so they didn't talk to each other, and now it's like kind of a mad labyrinth of different levels. And that's something that is there, that we can do we cannot do anything because it's already there, so we cannot redesign it again, but we need to redesign systems that navigate those issues.
Even though you saying that, because I'm a person, like I don't really ride bicycles or I don't really push prams, so it's very interesting that you said that, because now I'm thinking from the point of view of someone who has to bring a pram, and then they have to bring shopping, and then if they have another kid, a little kid, and the issue that can cause, even when you take public transport in terms of buses only have 2 spaces for a pram. So if they come into the bus and then they want to go in it, they have to wait a whole absolutely few minutes for another one, or even longer before them just to get home. And even the thought of getting the pram onto the bus, loaded between the pavement, the sidewalks, that's it, and getting into the buses can be an issue, because sometimes as well you find that the bins are located in places where they need to use the back door. So I think these are little things that sometimes we don't even think about as well.
Yeah,
could be an issue.
I did notice that from memory, that when he used, because you never used to know, or in Point historically buses didn't have ramps that they are designed with now. And, when they were introduced, it was very clunky. The bus driver had to get off, take it out.
And put it on, right?
Yeah, and now with the digital buses, or rather electric buses that are a lot bit more fancy, you now get these little automatic sliders that come off. So just things like that. And I don't know what it is, whether it's advocacy or having the right people in the design process who, so I don't know, maybe that diverse voice is needed throughout the design process. But it would be helpful also if you've got those people designing the actual buildings, like you suggested, having somebody as part of the project that is a real changes perspective. Yeah. So that's why you need a lot more diversity within design, within the profession.
And that diverse voice is the key, because once you're not talking and you're not having an hypothesis of how this could work. No, you are explaining to a person that will face those issues every day what your design is doing to address the issues. And they will have questions that you never thought of.
Yeah.
I remember this one time when we were working with the, it was a venue that had so many levels, and just almost 90% of the space, it was inaccessible for the particular set of users. So just being able to have a small platform lift or have a ramp that just allows you to move around and to discover places that you were never able to go.
Yeah.
It was already an incredible change. And sometimes it's that small change that creates a big difference for some people. So I think that what you said, including the diversity, maybe we should do it in a way that every architecture student for half a year needs to be using a wheelchair. And then they will they will understand what are the actual patients that you have. That is not an afterthought, but it's something that needs to be very carefully considered from the beginning.
So far now, Armor, we have put the rice in. We've also put the chicken stock in.
So we put the rice in, and the rice was cooking without water for 5 minutes. That's quite an important step, because that's when the rice gets most of the flavor of the tomato and the olive oil and all the herbs that we have added. We have added rosemary, and then we have added saffron as well at the end.
And sage.
And then, and sage. Thank you. And then after that, once the rice was cooked for a few minutes with everything together, we have added broth that needs to be warm, so it doesn't stop the process of the cooking. And now we have a bit more prepared here on the side. just in case. Yes.
Okay.
And then it really depends on the type of rice that we are using. We are using Bomba rice in this case, which is rice from the south of Spain, which normally cooks in half an hour, 45 minutes. But now it's just a matter of giving time to the recipe and to make the rice soften and fully cook. And after that, the paella will be done. So that's the secret behind it. And advice, if you are preparing paella, like I would say, just don't be afraid. Go for it. Taste, add whatever you feel that you will like and that it will complement the flavor quite well.
And even for this year, with the collaboration with Beyond the Box and the People's Pavilion as well, it's the aim for getting young users to design spaces. So, because with architecture industry, when you're an architect, you're an architect, you're like, I think 14, 30, late 30s, probably. So there's not many voices from the young perspective of spaces that they would want to dwell in. So if you have an example, you have parks that are not being used, you will have spaces that per se were designed for young people, but young people don't really like being in those spaces. And even like this year with the People's Pavilion is given, I believe it's from 18 onwards, is giving those young people an opportunity to design a space, a pavilion that they would want to be in. What is your take on that? Even with like young people, we talked about those who are much older, being in those spaces. But what do you think for young people, designing spaces that will make them want to dwell there? Because even if you think about rural areas and areas that are don't think about they tend to move and go into cities. So how do you think we can design spaces now with the voices of younger people to get them to stay and not to always like to migrate, and also to stay in spaces that they would want to be in, basically? What are your thoughts on that, by any chance?
I think that the engagement is probably the key word, and I think that youth more and more is very difficult to manage.
Yeah.
And I say we see it with our students, we see it with the younger generations. Like more and more, people like to be in isolation and like to communicate through social media only, and not to use those public spaces as much as they used to do or as much as they should. So I think that having that particular user group that is perhaps now being left a bit out of the dialogue, and especially like teenagers or people that are still like kind of even first years of universities, like the social interaction is limited so much to the digital world, than putting out the question of how would you design your public realm better so you would use it more. I think that's key. And I think that's something that the People's Pavilion does well. No, it's like, okay, let's co-design it together. So then you have to use it. How would you improve it? How would you improve the pavilion that it can be attractive to you? So you are not going to stay in your living room like chatting with another 25 people that are in flats that probably are around you. Let's go there and talk. And that's the beauty of that approach. No, which the People Pavilion is doing very well. But the
opportunity
is just challenging them to actually think about why the younger generations are less and less using the public realm. Like we used to play on the streets, we used to like continuously, like that was the meeting point. But where you are, I'm going out, I'm going to the street. And now that people will be there automatically. But nowadays that doesn't happen anymore. So what do you ask from a public space that can trigger that
interaction with bringing people together? And since we have about 20 more minutes on rice, so we're going to take a short break and we'll be back just near the ending, just to get to see the rest of what is happening. So stay tuned, don't go anywhere, get a drink, take a break, and come back. See you soon.
Okay, my name is Fendi and I live in around this area. We do get a lot of charity food that we give to people that comes around to Fellows Court. And many of the companies do give free food that we give out to people. Do you want to come in with me? This is one of the food that we give out to charity. We give it out to people around these areas. Yeah, we've got some fruit, vegetable. We've got some cooking items that we do give out to people. Yeah, and I'm going to show you the hall, the main hall, where we do serve some free food. We've got a lot of people coming down here to see what we have. Some of them come for breakfast, and this is the tea pots that they do get free. Tea, coffee, if they need one. And we do leave some of the food on the table for people that need free food. Maybe they need some extra food in their house if they cannot afford to buy it. We've got some there, and some of them just come here to relax in the evening as well. These are the cup they've used. We're gonna wash it, right? And we'll do a bit of cleaning after we finish, voluntarily. Yeah, we're about to go to the kitchen just to show you where we make our food. These are some of the tomatoes that were donated to us that we're gonna use for cooking, and these are the red pepper, garlic, onion, and this is the cooker we use in cooking. This is where we wash all our plates, and these are some of the pots that we use in cooking. And I need to show you the other part of the kitchen, which is this one. We normally cook a lot of food in here when we have a lot of people coming in to eat, like on Sundays, during the week, Mondays. We normally serve some people that are homeless, that haven't got places to stay. These are where we do cook and give to them. They don't need to pay anything, it's only free of charge. After finishing all the cooking, which is around the corner here, down there is all of our bin where we throw the rubbish. And that's it. Thank you.
Welcome back, guys, to the series 2 of Cooking with an Architect. As you can see, we have just finally finished our dish of the paella, which Amor decided to make for answering the question, what does architecture mean to you? We just want to round up by sharing this dish, and as you're sharing it, any more thoughts you wanted to give towards the dish that you decided to make for us today?
I hope it tastes good.
Yeah. So this is the dish that we made. So we have chicken in the dish. We have, what else we have in it?
So you have the pepper and onions that we have added at the beginning. It has garlic, it has rosemary, sage, it has saffron, and it has the rice as well. And it's been complemented with the broth, the chicken broth.
Yeah.
It's been added gradually to the recipe.
Well, as you can see, this is the final dish, guys, and thank you again for tuning into series 2 of Cooking with an Architect. Should we just quickly try it so they can see? Was really good. Ooh. Well, guys, comment to see your pictures. Remember to tag us on the Instagram, be in our comments, like and subscribe. When you make this dish, remember to tag Bold Platform and also do hashtag Cooking with an Architect. And then also, where can they find you guys?
So they can find us in unit8.uel if they want to follow the work that we are doing with our students at the University of East London.
And you can find us physically at on Weymouth Terrace on Fellows Court, which is where EDS Community Kitchen is based. And you could find us online on our socials. I don't know the exact tag, but I'm pretty sure it's, if you search for EDS Community Kitchen on Instagram, Facebook, on all any other social media, you'll be able to find this.
Well, thank you again, guys, for joining today. I'm so excited for the next episode of Series 2. So make sure you stick around for next week to see who our next guest architect is. Thank you again, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Tifa from EDS Community Kitchen. I'm one of the trustees and volunteers at this space. It's been very interesting participating in this project, this series, and the thing that I have learned and taken away from today's conversation and cooking exchange was just how complex yet enmeshed loads of different aspects of just daily living are in what makes a space a good space.
Hello everyone, my name is Armor Guietteres and I'm an architect, a maker and educator working and living in London. I am a senior lecturer at the University of East London and I'm also the co-founder of Atelier La Juntana, a workshop focusing on critical making located in the north of Spain. The episode of today has brought a lot of topics to the table, and to me the main highlight that I take from the session is the importance of incorporating the users and their needs into the design process, and how through a community-led initiative like the Community Kitchen, where we have hosted the episode today, you can really have an impact in both in the local community but also in the way people are overcoming the challenges that they are facing every day. So I have to congratulate first of all Chun-Li and Bold as a platform for bringing us together and facilitating this incredible exchange of ideas through cooking, and second to the Ideas Community Kitchen for the incredible work that they are developing in the neighborhood, so hopefully for many more years.
Hi guys, I'm Chun-Li, and what I have learned from today's interview is that community is really the heart and soul of the spaces that we design, that we really have to think about those who use our spaces, those who surround our spaces, and even how we design around them. I think today was very impactful. We learned so much, the collaboration between having Tifa and also having Armor from the design perspective and also the community perspective. It was just a great combination, and even the dish that we made, Paella, the collaboration of us coming together making the dish was really awesome.